Daktari, it appears then BRICS cement Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Of course, other countries were incorporated, amongst them Saudi Arabia. How does he trade this? And you mean he was treated to a red carpet treatment at the White House before Biden left office, and she on the other end had just done the same for him. I mean, how does he navigate?
I think President Ruto really knows what he's talking about. And what he's talking about is in recognition of the global economic realities today as we speak. The global economic realities today, one facet of it is that you need a new form of multilateralism, one that has got mutual respect, mutual understanding, and mutual cooperation. One that is not based on a colonial praxis of tutelage. And I think I said this in Washington. A colonial praxis of tutelage, you will see reactions such as tariffs, sanctions on diplomats. You'll see excessive levels of American economic nationalism, which are all forms of a reaction to the reality that the imperial hegemonic America's global power is in decline, and I may want to add that it is in rapid decline. Okay? So I think the other thing that Ruto does really understand is that you have to form critical alliances, with people who are going to treat you with mutual respect, not those who will come up or try to craft or construct global economic policies based on domestic interests or domestic political interests. Let me tell you, see, all this discourse by Trump on tariffs, sanctioning global diplomats, is all as a result of the reality that America can no longer be actually a leading manufacturing power, a leading economic power, and very soon a leading military power. And the figures are out there. I mean, 20 years ago, China only had a manufacturing capacity of 8% of the world. Right now, it controls 30%. America 20 years ago was controlling 20%. Right now, I'm told it's controlling less than 3%. Okay? So Ruto has great insights into these economic realities of the decline of the West, okay, and the rise of the rest. That is why these economic alliances that he wants to form really is to the benefit of the people of Kenya in terms of the great, and China, by the way, is right now financing most of our infrastructural development. Very soon they're going to go into manufacturing, okay? Now, people may say that is a political strategic mistake. How do you balance the West and the South or the East? In terms of the levers of power. Because people still believe that there are great economic and military power differentials. But the reality is out there, okay? In the contemporary world in which we need today, particularly where we need trade, we need economic support, economic cooperation. We may not necessarily need that military aid in the long run. So I think President Ruto has actually taken advantage of these new economic realities.
Okay. Dr. Kaneje, is that so? And can America be easily discarded as a strategic ally?
First of all, I will differ just slightly. With my colleague.
Me too.
America is not in rapid decline.
Yeah.
It is in relative decline as a result of the rise of the rest.
Yes.
As you mentioned. It's still by far the most powerful country
in the world. Yes.
It has the amount of soft power that is still unparalleled.
Yeah.
And that is going to remain for some time to come.
Yeah.
Hollywood is not going away anytime soon. And we can even chant death to America and we're still wearing I Love New York.
Yes.
That's how much has gotten into our psyche.
When they do manufacture nothing?
He'll come to that. Wait.
I'll come to that. and I'll come to that, House can show.
It's an interesting debate.
In 2023, I was actually in that great hall of the people.
Yes, I remember.
So I'm pretty clear, and I happen to have lived in the U.S. for more than a decade.
Yes.
13 years or so. So I have a pretty good sense, of these kind of discussions. Now, what, of course, is happening is not just that, it's not our recognition. This is something we recognized in 2003 as a country. That is why we started the Look East policy at the time. Now, that does not mean we isolated the West, because we have strategic partnerships that go back years. And we have fundamental aspects in terms of the way we build networks with the West that are not going away anytime soon, including how we think, how we craft things. However, the reality that now the rise of the West, especially led by China or the BRICS Plus, because the BRICS Plus, that's what we have now, and that it is the manufacturing capital of the world. They make roads and infrastructure better than any other country right now, and faster, more efficient and cheaper. I went through many, many cities, and you'll find one city that is producing like 25% of the world products just in that.
Amazing.
You understand?
Okay. Amazing.
And so the future is East in terms of industry and manufacturing and export. The better part of the last 20 years, the Asia-Pacific region has led the world, global economy. Now, today is Asia-Pacific, then you come to Africa, then the Americas, then Europe this year is projected, EU, for instance, to grow at only 0.4%, for instance. So, yes, this also a recognition of the realities. But also there's another fundamental thing. I was happy, impressed that the Kenya Airways, the ones that landed there, and we could see it, and so there are no controversies with regard to what jet the president used. But there are certain, especially when it comes to infrastructure projects, there are things that Beijing can do that other countries can actually not be able to do. One of the things that I find also, I think, interesting is last year, was it when we visited Washington?
Yes.
We got a very big reception, but the type of commitments did not exactly speak in terms of transformation, the way, for instance, type of commitment that we've made, and we have seen certain results, from China. And what I suspect is this, and I know my colleague Hashi doesn't see 2027 as happening, but if these things were implemented, remember, it's not just the 100 or so billion shillings, it's the 4.5 billion that's supposed to put infrastructure all the way to Uganda.
Yeah.
If this thing, for instance, happens, the amount of jobs it may create and transformation it may allow, it may actually also boost even the president's own campaign in terms of saying, I've delivered something. And so, while politically it may be beneficial, from economic terms, it holds perhaps one of the greatest potential in the last few years of transforming this economy as we know it.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Gidua. Yes. I'll come to you, Ahmed.
Yeah, so countries are deemed as rational actors. That means before any country does anything in the world of international relations, there's a cost-benefit analysis. My perspective is that, and I like what Dr. Kanejo said, as you're making new friends, do not isolate the old ones. So at any one time, you don't want to move 10 steps forward, 15 steps backwards. So that cost-benefit analysis, that's a delicate balancing act in the world of international relations. What do I want to get from this place and that I cannot get from this place? Those are the deep questions the nation states ask at any given time. So were we right in going to China? Yes, because granted, there are things that the Chinese will do at a price point that nobody else will do. But at the same time, you also do not want to isolate your old partners. So it is very delicate. So you are allowed, your sovereignty allows you to make friends. Nobody can come and demonize Kenya for having friends anywhere in the world. Because Kenya has all those friends because of whatever interest it is pursuing from those friends. So for me, the advice that I always give is that do that cost-benefit analysis. You're a rational actor. What are you getting from China that you cannot get from the West? And what can the West give you that China cannot give you? That's why if you ask me, the West is good for Africa. The West is good for Kenya because of certain things, because of their democratic principles, and they hold us to account and all that. China and the East is good because they will give us, quality things, but at the cheapest price. So if you ask, was it right or wrong? It was not. The answer there is, what are our interests? Okay. What do we want to achieve as a country? And who can give it to us at the least cost, while giving us quality at the same time. But remember, in diplomacy, it is that delicate balancing act. Don't make new friends at the expense of the old ones. Like the Swahili say, don't despise the midwives, and people are still getting pregnant. Yes. So exactly.
The great and ultra right-wing conservative theorist of international political economy, Henry Kissinger, said that an empire does not go out of its way to build an international system. An empire wants to be the international system. So we have to get an analysis of international political economy right before we can make some points about it. So the United States is effectively an empire. But the rise of the periphery, the rise of a counter-hegemony, did not rise on its own. The United States global finance was critical in investing in China and making global finance trillions of dollars out of the Chinese miracle. It is not only the Chinese who lifted 600 people out of poverty. It is global finance that has got something to do with that. So that's one thing. And the second thing is that the United States political economy, of its philosophy about the world, is a neoliberal disciplinary hegemon. And it wants to put that everywhere in the world. It has failed in Ukraine. Liberal hegemony has failed in Ukraine. It's out. They are going to make peace, and Ukraine is going to lose big time. That shows you the limits of empire, because the Russians and the Chinese and the other little players got together and stopped it, and they said, "You cannot go past this." You know that the United States has got hundreds of military bases across, from Japan,
720,
all the way to Europe, and Europe is crying over this lack of protection. The difference between the administration of Donald Trump and, say, Biden, for an example, is that Donald Trump feels that other people have to take up the weight of some of the things that the Americans are doing. It does not mean that he's ejected. He's going to be an isolationist. The United States cannot be an isolationist because it is such a profound power. But he wants the responsibility for some of the weight to be taken by Europe and to be taken by the other groups. I'll give you a specific African example. The head of the military of CENTCOM went in front of the Joint Congress, Defense and Foreign Affairs, and he said that they want to overthrow our son, I cannot use any other word apart from that, Captain Traoré, who has decided to change his country, unlike us, and brought agriculture back, he brought investment back, he's fixing his gold, he's refused...
Spelling the French.
Yeah, he's refused neocolonialism, he's building the Sahel Union. He's showing that it is possible for us to create something called a counter-hegemony. And this is the concept, not my concept, this is a concept of the Southern Italy philosopher called Antonio Gramsci. So if you want to build counter-hegemony, you do it the way Mr. Captain Traoré, a 35-year-old captain in the army. I put it to you, Ayub, that it depends today in the political economy of world politics. There is a very important concept that I believe it must be used, and that is bringing the global South together. Mr. Hazakadenj is an expert on that issue. And when you bring the global South together, you provide a bulwark against being run over by the United States. You remember when Gamal Abdel Nasser, Allah Yarhamah, and all Tito and all provided the third tenet in international relations, the non-aligned movement, and how that was so important to Africa. Today, the African Union is not speaking about Burkina Faso because we have not built this global hegemony, counter-hegemony, and it is very important for us to understand that Trump is going to take his sword. He doesn't want to. His relationship with Kenya is very bad. He doesn't want to deal with William Ruto. William Ruto saw this, and he's gone to China. China already knows that. China's investment in this country, is not the one that leaves us with something to do. It sucks us completely. They even brought Chinese prison labor here was to build the Thika Road. So what we need to do is to develop East Africa. What is the University of Nairobi doing if they cannot build a railway from here to Uganda? You remember the coolies and the British are the ones who built that road. What is this University of Nairobi people doing there if they can't put these blocks together and build a road for us? What is it that we cannot build about these trains from the 1960s and the 1970s? We have to take responsibility for our country and our region, Ayub.
Yeah, and Dr.